I was taking a shit earlier, and it was a really big fat shit. You know those kinds of shits that you have to like squeeze out, and it's almost like the shit takes another shit.
It sort of feels like a rock. It's not even.
It's like you're giving birth to a statue.
It's more.
In the shape of the thinker coming out of my ass. Speaking of shit, The Flash. We talk about The Flash a lot on this show. And guess what we're going to talk about this time? The motherfucking Flash! Again, because we never discussed the season 4 finale. So you'll have that to look forward to right after the jump when we roll the 8-bit intro.
So, where to start off with this? So I did run a few polls on the Utterly Nonsense Twitter, and I kind of like doing this. I think it gives us.
Let's take a look at those.
So have you been looking at these as they've been updating?
A little bit. I mean, I don't follow them that closely because they don't appear unless they're retweeted. But I did look at them actually before because I was trying to think of a new poll that I was gonna put. Why do you think, or what do you think is the reason why speedsters have different colors? But I couldn't really put it into short answers that as like a multiple choice thing.
Right.
I basically wanted it to be a joke where the last answer is, it's just an aesthetic thing. It's like, duh.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is what it comes down to. I think, I forget where it was that you gave the explanation you came up with. It was some article.
Yeah, that's why, because I read an article that said...
was it like a Quora post or something?
It was... What'd you say? What?
Quora? Something like that? Quora?
I don't know, but the reason the article gave was, I don't know, something about their connection to the Speed Force, which also determines how fast they are, so it's like, the redder it is, the slowest they are, unless it's Reverse Flash, because he has reverse Speed Force, and then the wider it is, the faster they are, so it's like red shift in space. But that has more to do with whether something's going away from or close to you, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Or is it...
I mean, again, it seems like kind of a lame excuse to me. When it comes down to it, it is just an aesthetic.
Yeah, it's just for the look.
I feel like red lightning on a red suit just would look kind of weird. It would kind of lack that contrast. Kind of look like just sort of a blend. So just to get into these polls,
here's the first
I ran
one.
2 Flash specific polls.
The first one is who has the best, or who has been the best Flash villain?
Yeah, and that was the one I wanted to start with, mainly because, I think it pertains more to the actual discussion we were going for this episode. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it goes without saying that in every great story, any great story with a hero, the hero's only as good as their villain. And this is true in any genre, regardless of whether or not it's a superhero or, like, The Princess Bride or whatever, So it's especially true in superhero comics and superhero media. So, for The Flash... Well, before I actually get to the results of the poll, and there is still a couple days left on this, so people have time
it says
to
1
answer.
day left, actually. So there probably won't be time by the time this comes out.
1 day, 14 hours, whatever. Yeah, you never know. But, so what did you think of The Thinker, first of all?
Okay, so I found him pretty interesting at first, because they were building him up as this guy who's plotted all of this out so that he can get all of these people where he needs them to be, but as the season kept going on, it's like, what was his motivation? They didn't tell you until like the last 2 or 3 episodes, and I was like, well, I guess that it was interesting in that he ends up, spoiler, getting everyone's powers, but the actual philosophy of it, where he wanted to make everyone brain dead, more or less, so that he could be
brain
the biggest brain. It's kind of like the Thanos thing. It's like, Yeah, I see what you're saying in terms of the big
Yeah.
picture, but it really doesn't make any sense. You could just do something else and make $1 billion, or
So-
fix the problem in a different way.
Yeah, so I did. So I did notice the same sort of Thanos allegory, or the same sort of Thanos parallel. There actually is a rationale behind his whole ideology in like mainstream philosophy. I don't know if you're familiar with Jean-Jacques Rousseau, 18th century Enlightenment thinker who wrote the Discourse on Arts and Sciences. Is this ringing a bell, or should I go one?
Just give us a brief summary, a book report.
So basically, he thought that any form of entertainment, any form of like let's say media, but anything that's basically for frivolous pursuits, anything that's meant to take up time rather than have any sort of practical use, is automatically wasteful. It's what corrupts humanity. It's what automatically causes us to. It brings out the worst in us, and it's all inevitably a waste of time. So the general idea is we're happiest at our most primitive. Primitive man is the happiest. Therefore, we should strive for that sort of lifestyle. So that's sort of what the thinker's getting at. But, just the way he went about it is sort of cruel and inhumane. Like, even Rousseau was more playing devil's advocate than actually saying we should go, turn into cavemen.
Yeah, he probably had the basic idea of that at first, but then, of course, once he got all the power, he just kind of went power hungry. But I will say, I really like that scene where he's going through that military complex where they're keeping the radiation guy, and he's just like using everything to toss everyone aside and manipulate them.
Yeah, the whole single
like
room shot.
Watching Magneto in a base or something.
I was just about to say, I'm not a fan of the Marvel Daredevil series, the Netflix Daredevil series, but the single room, like the single. What I'm talking about, the long take in season 1 is like one of the standout moments from the entire series. And the Flash might have done it better.
Was pretty damn cool. And it made me like him in that moment. I'm like, okay, I haven't really been with this guy the whole time, but that scene, man, that freaking scene.
Honestly, like, you say what you want about DeVoe, the character, but the guy playing him knew what he was doing. Like, that was the perfect cast.
Oh, yeah, he's great. I don't know who he is, but he's great.
So, I know he's from New Zealand, so that kind of widens the bar to 5 people. So I guess, I personally think The Thinker is a close second for me in terms of overall villains of the entire franchise or entire 4-season run. I will say I was so fucking sick of the speedster villains, just the whole logic that he has to get faster in order to win. It's sort of tired. Like, after the first time, it was sort of just a dull way of carrying out things. So I kind of like that there was sort of a different skill set he needed to apply to beat the Thinker. I kind of like that there's, an element of you don't know what he has to do to beat this character.
Yeah, it's not just a normal solution as always, which is just run faster, Barry. But he still has the same problem of being dumb and not knowing what to do unless someone tells him.
Right. Yeah. I guess there needs to be that sort of element of that in order for them to have the whole team dynamic. But
I'm really tired of the team dynamic. I think it brings down the show. Same thing with Arrow. Yeah. Anyway, the team dynamic. It's tiring because they see that they specifically write them into these situations where somebody else has to come in and save him, and he completely jobs it to a low rate villain that. It might as well be the Flash runs in and trips on a banana peel. And then somebody has to come in and save him from something. Because the way he always messes up is so obvious. I don't know. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that I see what they're going for there. And, I do like the team he has, even if the dynamic itself is sort of iffy. I think that dynamic is sort of necessary for, like, CW shows in general. I think... we've come to expect that from some of these shows. It's more like just a trope than anything else. And I'm not necessarily against it. I think.
Listen to me very carefully. Generally. We are the Flash, okay? Not you, Barry. Yes, You're not the Flash. We are the Flash. All right, get that straight. You are nothing without us. Let me tell you, you are nothing.
Episode without referencing this whole line. Yeah.
We are the Arrow.
What's a worse line? What's a worse line? Run faster, Barry,
we are the Flash.
Or we are the Flash?
Although
Okay.
the stupid
Fair
run,
enough.
Barry, run thing, they just take that from Forrest Gump. Run, Forrest, run. Run, Barry. Aha, it was funny the first time. You don't have to keep repeating it.
Okay, so just to give the results of our first poll, Reverse Flash was by far the most popular option.
That's what I voted
in
for.
terms of villains. You brought Thawne. Yeah, I mean, I did too. I think easily the most interesting villain. I mean, it's just an interesting origin story to begin with. But I don't know. There's something just so cool about him facing off with his most iconic villain.
Yeah.
You know?
I was surprised that they went with him for the very beginning of the show, because I thought that would be something they do later on, because, like, what are they going to do? He's a yellow guy who runs around. He's like, I'm you, but reverse. But no, they literally do that, and it worked.
Yeah, I mean, again, they've been bringing him back like every season of at least one of the shows. Like Legends of Tomorrow, he was the main villain on immediately after it was on Flash. And again, they brought him back for Crisis on Earth X. He's not going anywhere,
He'll always make an appearance
But,
somehow.
yeah. Let's see. So, was there anything else you wanted to cover in, just regarding villains before we move on to something else about the episode?
Well, let me see the results here. So we have 61% for Reverse Flash, 17% Savitar, and 16% Thinker. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's probably the same amount of votes for Thinker and Savitar. It's sort of when it's that neck and neck,
I will
it's
say,
only a few votes. It's kind
I
of
liked this Avatar thing up until they revealed that it was just his clone or whatever. And then it didn't make any sense after
who else
that.
was going to be? Well, I mean, they sort of hinted at it the entire season. Like, if you were paying attention, you saw the clues. But, I mean, who else would it have been,
I don't know. Just someone new. But, yeah, well, we'll move on from that. Yeah, and of course last is Zoom, which, yeah, I guess so.
Okay. No, I'd have to agree with that. Zoom was probably the weakest villain.
Because what was he even after? I want to get faster. Race me, Barry, race me.
I think he just wanted to get fast enough so that he could be the fastest, which is sort of a lame motivation. I mean, I guess I get the whole power dynamic, but I don't know. Seems kind of lame. I feel like he could have accomplished the same thing just by killing Barry,
I don't know.
Let's see, what else? So just to get into plot details of the whole season 4 finale. What did you think about the whole reveal that Ralph was alive the entire time?
Not really that surprised, honestly, because
No, I wasn't.
he was more or
shocked at
less
all.
the main character at that point, and it was still his body that DeVoe was inhabiting, so his mind had to go somewhere.
Well, see, that's sort of what I was thinking as to why he might still be alive, and I'm not shocked in the slightest. I think he was one of the better things to come out of this season.
Yeah, definitely.
Just, I like the character. I like him on the team dynamic. I mean, who doesn't like Plastic Man?
I don't know. Some people might. Every time.
I know he's elongated man technically, but
Do you look at here's something I want to talk about, especially with these CW shows. And sometimes the Marvel ones, I looked at the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Twitter once, and it was a similar thing. But do you ever look at the top replies to every post on Twitter for one of these shows? It's always these weird, one-off accounts that are dedicated just to some kind of relationship. That's some relationship fantasy from two characters on the show, and they always post, yes, I'm so excited to see this relationship and this girl character who's only there for the relationship. It seems so off topic and weird that these things are always at the top, and they're just entire accounts dedicated to this. Why does these exist?
I mean, I think for the most part, that's bound to happen with any CW show. You have these fangirls who have nothing better to do than ship characters, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's any genuine reason other than you're just seeing them because they're there.
They're always at the top,
that will exist in any fandom, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's some Twitter.
It's so frustrating too because I'm so excited to see Iris West in action. Oh yeah, it's said no one ever. God, she's the worst on the show.
If it wasn't, if it wasn't for the fact that she's Iris, like they should have killed her off from season 1.
Well, they can't because she's like supposed to be the Lois Lane, but she shouldn't have a main role. That's the whole thing. Why does she have a main role? It doesn't make any sense. Or
they should have tried to keep the whole Flash thing a secret from her, beyond the first season.
Like picture this,
made for
right?
More interesting.
So you have Superman. And before he goes and does anything, he sits around jerking off in some kind of science station, like Star Labs, that's in Superman, with a couple people and Lois Lane. And then later on, Lois Lane becomes the leader of the team and tells Superman what to do. Would that make any sense at all?
Yeah.
Of course not.
No. Well, but especially with Superman, he's fucking Superman. He's literally invincible.
The Flash is more or less invincible. No one can touch him, but obviously they have to right circumstances where that doesn't work.
I don't know. It's sort of a different dynamic, and just for the sake of nothing can physically harm Superman other than kryptonite. It's not exactly an identical situation, but no, I fully get what you're going for, and you're absolutely right. Like.
Flash is kind of supposed to be a one-man show, though, because remember, he's also a forensic scientist, so he's supposed to find the evidence, do the science, think about the case, solve it, and do the action. That's his character.
See, I feel like in forensic science, it's never a one-man show. There's always like a lab of people working there. There's always
I'd assume he'd have some help occasionally, but all the time, every single outing.
Well, fair enough. What else was there anything else noteworthy about this season?
What's his name? Harrison Wells going brain dead.
Yeah.
Is that noteworthy?
And then basically getting it back over at the intelligence. Nah, it's kind of stupid. I mean, the whole thing was just sort of to represent the whole character of. It's his own hubris. It's in character for him to use the dark matter helmet.
Yeah, and then he leaves, so I guess he's written off the show again. It's like a staple of the series that Harrison Wells.
Well, they're going to bring back another Harrison
has
Wells.
To leave.
Like they're never going to not have some version of him.
Why do they even need him anymore?
I mean, I guess
they really don't.
Yeah, I will say that was my favorite version of Harrison Wells. That was like the one great part about season 2 for me. Just that version of Harrison Wells.
And it's probably a product of the first season because his Eobard, if you can call it that, was that good that they kept this character around that many more seasons, but it's just not the same.
I don't know. I'm anxious to see what they do, like in season 5, either with bringing Harrison Wells back, bringing on a new villain. It's I don't know. It's sort of weird to see where they're going to go from here. Like, I mean, at this point, they've already exhausted most of the main Flash villains. At this point, they've already sort of exhausted the whole
Rogues Gallery.
Power. Yeah, basically. I mean, that's the best way to describe it.
Well, that's what they're called.
Yeah, no, you're right. That is the technical term for it.
Did they open the Flash Museum yet? I don't even remember.
Yeah, they did. That was really early on too. Considering how little he must have done at that point, he got a museum really fucking quickly. Yeah. So again, there's the whole Nora thing at the very end of the episode, which was probably the most obvious reveal of the entire season.
Everyone was saying that it was Dawn Island, and then it's like, no, my name is Nora. Oh, all right.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, she was definitely a descendant of Darian Iris, which...
well, she says, I'm your daughter.
I think everyone saw coming. Yeah. Again, they were pretty much hinting that she was going to have some prominent role later on for the entirety of the season. So what was her big mistake?
The only thing I can think of is that she went back in time, obviously, and altered something.
Right.
I don't know what else it could be. But I will say I'm, for the first time, completely uninterested in what happens next. Let's see. End of season 1, there was the what I call the plot hole opening up, and I was like, well, yeah, what's going to happen of that? End of 2, there was... what was there at the end of 2? I don't remember. Oh, right, he does the
sort of
Flashpoint
spacing
thing.
out. Oh yeah, that was
Yeah,
pretty
but then it
major,
went
too.
nowhere. It fixed in
Especially-
one episode. Goodbye. And then
Well, I mean, I did sort of like seeing the Flashpoint universe, and I think the whole third season sort of dealt with the whole ramification of that. Like, Savitar could not have existed without Flashpoint happening. So, I mean, it did have a pretty profound effect.
the whole
you know?
season should have been in Flashpoint, though, not like, oh, there's crackle effects from altering it and then unaltering it. Whatever.
I mean, it would have been kind of hard to maintain that for an entire season. Maybe
least
not the
half
way
a
they
season.
painted it out, but yeah. I don't know.
And then end of 3 was the Speed Force storm.
And him getting trapped inside the Speed Force for
Yeah,
all
and they
of 3
teased,
months.
oh, look, he's writing all these
So-
symbols. What's that going to be? Never find out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, they sort of hint that, like, while he was in the Speed Force, he gained some sort of, what's the term for it? He saw into the future, you know, he had a general sense of, like, what would happen, like, throughout this season.
Yeah, but also remember
and I Yeah.
I was going to call her the coffee shop girl. Well, that's what she was. She was writing those down, too.
Yeah.
They showed her doing that, so it's like,
Uh-huh.
what does it mean? Oh, it's just a segue into the next season. Watch more episodes. All right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what they have to do to sustain themselves, I guess. So I think we've pretty much beaten the Flash. Yeah. The actual... I know, I'm so tongue-tied.
No, it's just your
We've pretty
phrasing.
much beaten...
I mean, if you watch the show, it's really not that hard to beat the Flash to death. It happens on a regular basis.
Yeah. Okay, so just to get into the other poll I ran here, because, you know, I'm actually pretty interested on the results on this, and this one actually does have more than a couple days left. Which actor is the better version of the Flash? And, you know, I definitely added in parentheses here, not necessarily more comic accurate, just more enjoyable, because, you know, I sort of have to add that cadence when it comes to this sort of thing. Because I think people tend to get hung up on the whole comic accuracy of the whole thing.
Well, I'm glad you put that there, because the way I see it, neither of them are really that comic accurate. I guess, what's his name? Grant Gustin, he looks slightly more like the character, but in the comics he's blonde, but neither of them are blonde. So that out of the way, despite things I've said in the past, where the Flash in Justice League was basically just a joke. I mean, the whole movie was essentially a joke, but I actually did vote for him because I thought he was a bit more enjoyable on the screen than, the CW Flash is. He kind of mopes a lot, or he acts a little weird. Like last time I said about how he's like, oh yeah, we can't kill the villain, it's bad. Yeah, stop preaching.
I mean, you know, I think we've seen a lot more of Grant Gustin's interpretation, largely because, you know, when you have a TV series focused on one character, of course, you're going to have a lot of character development, even if it's completely unintentional. But, you know, we didn't see too much of Ezra Miller, but what we did see was a way more entertaining version of the character. We found a version of the character that's more like what we would have seen in the comics. A more happy-go-lucky Barry, more like... Wally West in Justice League, Barry. You know?
Yeah, I felt he was more closer to Wally West than the
Flash,
cartoon personality.
Which, again, you know, Barry in the comics always had that sort of side to him. And the same thing is true in any sort of animated interpretation of the character.
Although, I'll say this, because the one in the cartoon, he was, like, cocky. He was very self-confident, whereas the one in the movie, he makes jokes, but he's completely... unself-confident, has like low self-esteem.
Well, he's a young Flash. I mean, he just got these.
Yeah,
powers.
that makes me think. Why did they do it like that? That didn't make sense to me. Because
I mean, the whole timeline of the DCU right now.
Yeah, because in Dawn of Justice, they show the footage like, oh, it looks like he's been the Flash, and then Suicide Squad, oh, he's been the Flash, and then in this movie, he's just like, oh yeah, I just push people and run away. Really?
So, I mean, I do have some thoughts on the whole thing, but, you know, just to get into it for the 5 minutes we have left here, you know, I think at least what we saw in DVS and Suicide Squad, the hints as to, like, I mean, it didn't really clear anything up. It showed him just starting out to be a hero. There's really no inkling as to how much time had passed between all those movies, maybe a year at most. I mean, you got to realize that's not a lot of time to become a hero when crime rates aren't huge. Like, we don't know what's going on in the whole Star City of the DC extended
You mean
universe,
Central?
You know? Yeah, yeah, I do. Yeah, caught myself there, like as I was saying.
Oh, speaking of Star City, I will say, although I think the majority of this season of Arrow, I know you don't watch it, but just to briefly dip into it, I thought the majority was kind of, business as usual, kind of soap opera crap. I do like where they went with the ending, where finally, for sure, at last, he says, I am the Green Arrow. So, I am Iron Man. Everybody knows he's Green Arrow now. And they take him to a Supermax prison. And for anyone who doesn't know, before the show was developed, they were actually writing a Green Arrow movie called Green Arrow Supermax about him escaping from a prison with all of these different DC villains. And something about him being wrongly convicted of murder. But so maybe, probably only for the first episode, they'll do something similar to what was in the script of that unproduced movie.
Well, fucking Arrow, man. Wasn't he the mayor in this, like, in the last season or something? Like, oh my god, that show went off the rails. Like, I gave up on it after the first season just because I thought it was getting a little bit ridiculous.
Well, you should at least watch season 2. Because mainly,
I probably should give it another
for nothing
chance.
else besides Deathstroke. Deathstroke is great, and he had 2 episodes in season 6, and those were like the best ones of the whole season because they give him the send off and everything.
Sure.
The send off because now he's gonna be played by what's the guy's name? James Mangold? No, that's the director. Somebody in the next Justice League movie if it ever happens. As part of their Legion of Doom.
I don't know. I mean, we could definitely devote an entire episode to the future of the DC.
Yeah, I think we've beaten that to death as well.
Just finished filming. I mean, I'm kind of anxious to see what they do with Shazam, what they do with Aquaman. All the solo movies.
We beat a lot of topics to death. Get your
really
media out there, and we'll
out.
talk about it and beat the shit out of it. That's what we do here.
Again. And I mean, next week, I think we're going to go a little bit outside.
Yeah, next week we're going to talk about all the shit at E3. Get into some Fallout. Get into some Microsoft. Get into some Nintendo, maybe.
Kind of Fallout. Let's be honest.
Talk about all that good stuff.
Yeah, especially if we can get if we can get our third not so special guest on. It's going to be a lot of Fallout. So
yeah. Well, I mean, just to give a little preview, I've been looking at it, and aside from it being online, it looks more or less the same as the other games.
Well, you haven't.
Yeah, but I've seen all of the gameplay and everything.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, we're about to hit the 30-minute mark. So,
very concerned about this 30-minute mark because a nuke goes off, and then we have to crawl into our shelters.
Okay, so if you're unfamiliar with us, if this is your first time listening, we are Utterly Nonsense. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever you're listening or
we
watching
are certified fresh on iTunes, meaning we're a fresh, new method of entertainment there, so you can find us.
We do, in fact, exist on iTunes. Yes. I'm CJ DeLeo. That's John Kaggs. This has been Utterly Nonsense. Keep in music, play us out.
All right.